Hey guys, Josh from Solution Based. We're going to talk today about gravity mains. If you live in any part of this country that was settled early, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, parts of Ohio, anywhere where you have an old city that is, has 100+ year old row homes and homes, you're going to see gravity mains. And what that means is that the boiler systems and the piping system were designed without any pumps on them. You had a big giant boiler with a ton of BTUs and a ton of water in it, and you heated that up, and by gravity, the natural force of heat wanting to rise, hot water wanting to rise, and cold water wanting to fall, the old timers designed these systems to be able to operate on that principle alone. So they were amazing at their piping ability to get that water delivered with no pumps at all. So, and this is a good example of it, right? Here are, 3-inch mains or 4-inch mains that are, you can see the very slow, gradual slope that is carrying the water throughout the building. So now we put pumps on these systems. So we've reduced the water volume in a modern boiler. And that necessitates having a pump on it because we don't have this big giant old boiler, and it just operates better with a pump. But there are some pitfalls that a lot of guys fall into, and I want you to be aware of them. One, there is almost no friction inside this big pipe. Not almost none. There is very little, let me put it to you that way, especially when we compare it to a 3/4 or a 1/2-inch pipe. So one of the number one things that guys will do is they'll come in and cut into this 3-inch main or even a 2-inch main like we have over there, and they'll try to add a radiator or some sort of heating appliance to this system. They do their work, it's nice and clean, they turn it on, nothing happens. No hot water goes through the system. And the reason that happens is because the lack of friction loss inside this pipe compared to a 3/4 or a 1/2-inch pipe means that this water is just going to continue going down this road and bypass your T's no matter what you do, because it's so much easier for it to travel down this giant pipe. So what we have to do is we have to allow for that easier flow inside these large mains. Well, how do you do that? The first thing you do is you start looking at the other radiators in the house. What size pipe is coming off of them? What is connected to them? These types of things. And if you have 1-inch taps going to a bunch of radiators, that should give you at least some indication of where to start. It goes further than that though, because if you have a giant radiator, that also has very little resistance in it. So things flow through it easier. If you're trying to then connect something that is a smaller tube style radiator to that, you could get yourself in trouble, and you want to make sure you have a plan for that. Usually oversized pipe is going to help you overcome that. In some cases, especially if you're doing it in the basement, that water just does not want to go down. An individual zone directly from the boiler piping is going to be the answer for that. Okay, so you really are going to have to be careful. You're really going to want to do your research, and you want to look at the system and how it's operating and have a backup plan if you start to have flow issues. Backup plan usually involves circulator, its own zone, maybe even a circulator without its own zone. In certain really, specific circumstances, you can get away with that. The last thing I want to tell you, the problem that guys create with this really is they'll come in here, they'll put a system in, they start having flow issues, and they put a giant pump. Oh, it needs a bigger pump. Must need a bigger pump. And that creates a huge problem. What you want to put in this typically is a 3-speed circulator, and you want to set that on its lowest setting. Or you want to talk to Taco or B&J or whoever you're using, Grundfos, and you want to tell them, hey, I have huge old gravity mains, and I want that water to go pushing out very gradually. The faster you send that water out, the more likely it is to run out of kinetic energy. Well, that doesn't make sense, Josh. Faster pump, more energy, should race to its endpoint, right? Untrue, and here's why. There's so much volume inside this pipe that it can actually create eddies inside the pipe and roll over on itself. And what happens when you do that is you start tumbling that water all the way down the line, and by the time it gets 20 feet and 390s down the road, it has no energy left to pump to the rest of the system. So bigger, faster pump is not the answer. When in doubt, talk to your pump manufacturer. Tell them, hey, I have these giant old gravity mains, I'm having flow issues, and I want something that just gently pushes that water down the road, but does it with some strength. And the manufacturers will be able to guide you in the right way. When in doubt, if you're doing a 007 oftentimes we are, do the 0015 that has 3 speeds that gives you a little bit of ability to affect the flow. Sometimes I'll run one of these on a 2. Sometimes I back it off to a 1. Every once in a while, it wants a 3. But that 3 speed gives me just enough ability to make a correction after the boiler is in. And sometimes that's worth $1 million. Thanks, guys.